Why Didn't You Test That podcast? Experiences and insight on the many sides of better software delivery.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Why Didn't You Test That podcast. Joining me today, guest host, is James Walker. Hi James, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks Rich, thanks Nishil. Looking forward to this one.
Awesome. Yeah. You've stolen my thunder a little bit there. Joining us as a very special guest today, we've got Nishil Patel. So Nishil, in addition to being the owner of QAble, a software quality engineering agency, Nishil is the CEO and founder of BetterBug, and has spent 11 years in quality engineering, working in startups to enterprises. Now building BetterBugs, a bug feedback reporting tool. This is about boosting dev QA productivity done through shortening devs, debugging journey, and gives testers with more efficient path to test automation. So welcome to the podcast, Nishil.
Thank you very much, Rich. That's a great introduction.
Cool. We've totally stolen it off your LinkedIn profile, so we can take no credit at all. so just to get us started, do you want to kind of just elaborate on kind of your past in QA? I think it's interesting in terms of, you've been from being a test automation architect into kind of where you are today, and then give us a bit of background around BetterBugs for people who won't know what it is.
Sure, certainly. So I'm a computer engineering grad, and I started my career in 2013 as iOS developer. And then I slowly shift to the test automations and, started building the bots. So that gives me a little bit more adrenaline rush, and, I explore more passage into the quality engineering. Then in 2019, I started my own agency called QAble. QAble is quality engineering company. So I work with lots of test automation frameworks, designing certain things, and I'm very proud test automation architect. But then when I realized that quality is not all about the automation, quality is a more holistic things. And then we try to have more solutions into the QAble. And then once last year we just have an auditor about our QA engineers, and then we come to know that if you do a functional testing, majorly you are spending your time you are understanding the requirements, test case writing, then exploratory and bug logging, and the test automation, right? So those are very much where the testers are spending their days. So there's lots of tools on test automation, there's lots of tools on test management, but something which is coming in between, which is the bug reporting, feedback reportings, and everything. So we do the time audits and productivity audits about the whole organizations, almost 45 to 50 QAs in my company. And then we come to know that, okay, every QA is spending almost 8 to 10 minutes to just report the issues. And on an average, they spend 40 to 50 minutes to report the issue. So it's like whopping 150 minutes in a day to just doing the reporting or clerical stuff, which is not the intellectual stuff, right? It's a mundane task, and even tester don't like it. So then and even after spending such kind of time, the developers comes and say that, okay, hey, I'm not able to reproduce this issue. And that's pretty much classical problem. Yeah. So I come across certain solutions that, as part of the evidences, we are capturing the screens, or we are recording the screens and putting the stuff into the Jira, right? Or any project management tools. So we started building a BetterBugs, which is a bug reporting tool or a feedback capturing tool. Whenever you capture a screenshots, it will automatically capture your information, network, console, cookies, local storage, everything what developer required to debug the stuff, right? So we are helping the QA to shorten their QA journey or to reporting the issue journey. And the other side, we are giving enough information to the developers that they can make their debugging speed very fast. Even we are also capturing the backend logs if there is integration with the, monitoring tools. So that's how, we are building the BetterBugs. Right now, almost we have 2,000 signups and more than 20,000 bugs are logged through the BetterBugs. So yeah, keep growing this.
Cool. Pretty good adoption.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll kind of split across kind of the two parts that you just said then, in terms of, we'll come back to the kind of the BetterBugs kind of use case and some of the uses of that a bit later on, but kind of touching on one of the first things that you started to look at there in terms of, starting your journey as a kind of a test, skip the developer part, as a test automation kind of architect, and kind of realizing that actually, even getting test automation right and, understanding testing, it's actually a lot broader, and it kind of goes into the kind of the quality conversation and philosophies of quality. I think it's interesting to kind of pick your brains in terms of, how is your perception of quality changed over the years in terms of, newbie, in terms of probably more focused on getting test automation working into actually it's much bigger than this, right? How do we start to understand quality, influence quality, talk about quality on a much broader scale? I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. So when we work with one of the part of the quality engineering, let's say a test automation, which is a little bit more glamorous now. So this is one part like of the whole quality engineering chain. So let's say if you can see the quality is very holistic stuff, then there is a lots of other parameters. Like let's say if I say this pen is quality pen, like what could be the parameter to judge it, right? When I say my mouse is quality mouse, what could be the parameter? Your life is quality life, what could be the parameter? So there is n numbers of things that comes into the picture when we talk about the word quality, but it's all about how user is pursuing the value. There's the foremost things that user has to be in a center, right? Secondly, probably you can also say that like the product has to be fit for the purpose. Let's say if there is a purpose of the pen to write the stuff, then it has to be fit for it, right? If we are not able to write with the pen, there is no meaning of the pen. The third one is where we are spending most of the time as a quality assurance process, which is that making the things defect free, right? So that's again a part of the quality. The value for money, like do we have the right value for money? So that is also part of the quality. So these are the whole. There is numbers of other parameters where we talk about the quality, but those are the kind of things where we need to understand the quality as a concept. And now how we are pursuing that quality of the quality concept into the testing. So generally for the software, I always divide the stuff into the three part. One is the functional quality, that is more a user centricity, and we are meeting up the requirements that whatever we committed, a user has to pursue the same. Second is the structural quality. So structural quality is a kind of something where the major developer stuff comes into the picture. So let's say on day one, if I'm started writing a code, my single code and the single line of the code has to be testable. So the testability, the maintainability of the code, the understandability of the code. Those are the structural aspect of the quality, the efficiency, like what is the performance and the latency, what are the security parameters. So those are the structural things that we need to embrace into the part of the quality. And the third is the process quality. So let's say your user is happy, everything is structured, but you are not meeting the deadlines, your estimations are not meeting, it's not fit into the budgets. Your teams are getting frustrated because of certain things, then again there is the problem to quality. So if we can do the Venn diagram of structural quality, process quality, and the functional quality, the center has to be the paramount of the quality. That's how I am right now pursuing the quality. So the test automation is one of the part which is really a key part to achieve the fast speed of the deployment. But yeah, if we can see the quality as a holistic stuff, then this has to be considered. Yeah,
100%, 100% agree with that. I think when I chat to a lot of teams, there's always this misconception, right? Especially in the less mature teams, where quality is, it's all about testing, right? And that they're so laser focused on quality being equivalent to testing, right? And you're yeah, exactly. And you're 100% right. There's so many different layers beyond that. I mean, to me, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, right? And I think testing is more of a kind of reactive thing. We've developed our application. We're now going to test it to make sure it meets the requirements. Whereas to me, quality is more of a proactive process. We're going to start with quality requirements. We're going to start, we're going to bake quality into our development. We're going to bake testability into there. It's shaping yourself up. So when it does come to that proactive state, you're in a much better position because of it, right? So I like this whole structuring kind of piece you're talking about there, Nishil. I think that's really interesting.
Cool.
I think it's interesting, right? When you quality is ambiguous, right? In terms of
True.
Yeah.
You talk about the pen you held up, right? And it's kind of even that kind of example in itself, right? In terms of what are the attributes us three see in a pen, right? And I'm sure we've all got different hopes and aspirations, if you like, for what a pen actually is, right? And so there's an interesting part in terms of quality within a product, within an organization, has a number of factors, including, is it really that important that it's a gold-plated product, right? Or actually, if it's got a few bugs in it, who really cares, right? Because it's a real low-value, revenue-generating thing for us, and therefore, quality to us actually isn't up here; it's somewhere around here, and that's the right place to put it, right? And that's how do you get to a place where those things are actually understood, right? I think by almost blindly writing requirements, blindly chuck it over the fence for the developer to develop it, blindly chuck it over the fence for the tester to create automation on it, do you get those outcomes?
Yeah, true.
I think,
Absolutely. So
cool.
So I guess James mentioned that there's a reactive and the proactive approach. So when your quality engineering philosophy and understanding is shallow, you will be a more reactive. But once you understand that it is more about not finding the issue but preventing the bugs, then probably you are thinking about the shift left approach. You are going upper and upper into the whole process of the
100%.
software engineering. And we always say that, testing is actions, quality assurance is a process, and business has to be the outcome. So you need to go in that particular phase. Yeah,
I agree, and I think there's a maturity to this as well, right? Like if you're an organization who, has significant issues with, defects going into production, then testing is probably the quickest win to start to get that in line, right? Like, let's pick up those defects a little bit earlier. And then once you've got that sorted, then let's start to move into that more kind of proactive state. So I think there is a maturity curve to this as well, I guess.
Exactly.
In terms of kind of the organizations you're working with, are you seeing those conversations? Are people asking you how to move towards these conversations? I guess, the tooling capability you've got around BetterBugs kind of leans into that whole kind of feedback, better understanding things, right? Are you kind of seeing those conversations and people asking you for those capabilities?
Absolutely. So let's say the BetterBugs has the simple philosophy. What we have developed that, on one side, you can say the devs and QAs looks like enemy and they are just fighting to each other. But on a BetterBugs, we are saying that be the buddy of the developers, because you are feeding something to them and they are consuming that bugs to you, and then they debug on it and they solve the problem. So our goal is to resolution of the bug, after all, by having the teamworks. So I always get such kind of things, whenever I talk about the BetterBugs. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And I guess, James, we've been having some conversations at the moment with organisations where we're starting to talk about, not tooling functionality, but for us, inner and outer loop kind of conversations around whole developer productivity stuff is kind of there or thereabouts, but the whole stuff around that, including, are things articulated in the way they need to be, i.e. requirements, are the processes in place, do we understand bottlenecks? That kind of message is really resonating, I think. Do you want to kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for us, so BetterBug is actually a fantastic example of this, to be honest. So in my mind, developer productivity has got almost as good as it's going to get with the developments that have come out, right? So if you look across the past 20 years, what have we seen? We've seen big code libraries come out like Maven, etc. More recently, we've seen GitHub Copilot come out, and these have given developers such a big boost on productivity. But the reality is that actually the biggest thing holding development back is all the kind of productivity blockers, which are nothing actually to do with development. It's the assets that have been pushed over to them. So when you're talking there about having reproducible reports for bugs, if that's not in check and it's not there, all of a sudden the developer has to go out and get clarity over exactly how to reproduce that defect so they can go and fix it, right? So all of a sudden it's gone from being this task that could have been, 10, 20 minutes into, now I've got to go block time, I've derailed my afternoon, I've lost my concentration track I'm on. And actually you've significantly reduced productivity as a result of that, right? And we're seeing the same thing with requirements as well, ambiguities and requirements, incompleteness. We're seeing the same thing with test data. If you don't have your data set up, then all of a sudden someone has to go and spend an awful lot of time having an awful lot of conversations to go and find and make the data they need, right? So I think we've come up with this notion of this inner outer loop. The inner loop is about the world of the developer, and that's fantastic. Under the right conditions, that can move incredibly quickly. But the outer loop is everything that supports the developer in creating good code efficiently, being as productive as possible. And there's so much stuff around that outer loop, which is just completely ignored in organizations. Everyone's so focused on what's the best developer tool I can get. And the same thing's happening with AI at the moment, right? Everyone's trying to adopt AI agents to write code for you. And the reality is that's such a small piece of the puzzle, right? There's all of this stuff around software delivery that can influence the productivity of the software delivery lifecycle, right? So I think there's a whole narrative here, but ultimately there's so many productivity blockers that are just, I don't know what the right word is, but organizations are blind to them to a certain extent, and they do kill productivity, right? It's like a silent productivity killer, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. To expand on that, and I guess, again, feeding into how people use your tool, Nishil, we talk about kind of painkillers and vitamins. I think James's way he talks
vitamins.
About in terms vitamins if you're American. In terms of what we see, in a lot of organizations have got themselves into a problem where they're looking for quick fixes, right? Which is where the whole painkiller thing comes in terms of, all right, my development life cycle is this. I'm kind of stuck there, and therefore I can only make small tweaks in terms of what I'm doing, and therefore I never really solve the systemic problems. All right, I'm interested in terms of especially using BetterBugs, and I can see that teams in Agile, for example, will potentially use BetterBugs to potentially do a lot of exploratory stuff, and then the benefit of capturing a lot of the things they're doing through those exploratory exercises. Do those teams then solve or go back to solve the systemic problems, or is it almost we're kind of just using it as a kind of a painkiller pointer kind of thing?
Exactly. So the purpose of the BetterBug itself to catch up the pains. So we developed one of the good feature called a rewind. So let's say when you are doing the exploratory testing and you feel that there is an issue, you don't need to go back to reproduce it again. You just need to click on the rewind. It will be auto capture your last 2 minutes. Now the thing is, when you have this last 2 minutes with you without reproducing, you are saving the time over there. But on the great side, the developer get the all nuances of the networks, right? So they know that, okay, these last 2 minutes these are the 4xx, these are the 5xx, these are, if it is integrated with some Sentry, then these are the logs on particular basis. And then we are, on top of that, we are training the model for the AI debugging. So it will analyze the stuff, what are the consoles, what are the networks, and what are the errors, and then it will gives you the root cause analysis. So because this is something where the developer required the RCS, right? And that once you have the RCS, these are the probable steps to resolve it. The productivity will be boosted. And then if you can if you can see some of the applications which are more enterprises application, where if you can consider the fintech or BFSI or kind of a big sector where the workflow management is very key. They are getting the issues and QAs are recording the issues. Those are the length of 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Developer don't have the time to see the whole 15 minutes what the things are happening on the screen. So quickly they can roll out the stuff. They use the AI debugger and that's it. So that's how we can boost up the productivity of the developers. And then we are also quite experimenting on the stuff that probably we can attach the BetterBugs with the repository of the source code. So now we know that these are the source code.
Cool.
This is the errors, and then you can map that what to fix, where to fix. So that's where we wanted to play a very vital role on the debugging side. Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, that's so empowering. I mean, having come from a development background, the amount of times you're just sent a meeting recording of the customer on a call, and the meeting's an hour long, and you're giving a little segment of time, but then it takes you so long to get contextualize it right and find out.
True.
And then to your point, you have to go back in the code, understand where that is, Was there a commit that happened recently? Like,
Exactly.
I completely agree with you. We live in the world of data now, and we should be able to feed our engineers as much data as possible. I think the biggest problem that I see in a lot of organizations, I'd love to get your viewpoint on this as well, is a lot of the time organizations have this, but they don't have any traceability between the systems, right? And they don't have they don't have a lot of the data that's there, right? So do you think that there's almost something to do in organizations to help get their traceability, get their data in check so that you can start to do this advanced stuff? Or do you think, or are you working with a lot of organizations who are already there with their data, I guess?
True. And then, where the AI assistant is coming, I can see lots of issues are coming more than the reducing the issues. The reason is like developer has very quick access of the AI. They just put up their stuff into the chat GPT and getting the code and adding that piece of code to their source code. Now they don't know, like, this unit of that code is working with or easily integrate with their source code or not. So what I feel like, AI is all about having the more assisted to you instead of making decision on behalf of you. So you just get the inspire from that, what the piece of code you are getting, but you need to write down your own logic, which is fit in your source code. And that's matter a lot.
I agree.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Does it change the behaviors within the team? So by that, I guess we're talking about developer tester productivity here. In a let's say a more traditional manual place where bugs are captured and maybe manually half articulated, there is an opportunity, let's say, for the unscrupulous developer to kind of boot them back, sometimes rightly, sometimes not so rightly. And so you get into this kind of merry-go-round of kind of just defect triaging all the time rather than actually getting to root causes of problems. I guess, with a tooling capability like yourself, especially with the traceability in there, ultimately there is an accountability, right? And therefore, if there is accountability there, a potential behavioral change.
Absolutely. So, to be honest, when I was working and executing certain projects, I hate that bug triage meetings because I already logged the bugs, and now we three people are coming together and saying, okay, why you log this bug? What are the things? Okay, you need to document this stuff, and then it gives a little bit more idea to developers. That's the something which is I hate always. So that is also one of the unhidden motives that you don't need a bug triage meetings. Don't waste too much time on it. Just focus on the root cause analysis of the issues and just getting done.
Yeah, you said at the very start, right? And I can't remember the numbers you said, but your teams were spending a hell of a lot of time just recording the work they were doing, like so retrospectively going back and having to recreate things that sometimes they can, sometimes they can't, right? And I've seen it as well. Is there is so much waste in that whole process that and also you don't necessarily have the ammunition. Let's say a lot of issues. Yes, they result in kind of coding errors, but did they originate around the whole developer coding? No, they probably came something before that, right? Right, but misinterpretation. But a lot of the time, you don't have the ammunition to go back and say, yes, this was a code problem, but actually we need to take another step back because the way it was articulated or the way it's working wasn't actually as defined, or it was never defined in terms of requirements.
Absolutely.
So I guess there again, it gives a lot more credence to doing true root cause analysis rather than everything is an application bug, right?
Exactly. So the thing is, like, we come across one of the framework there. We make it like blameless root cause analysis process, and then we write down 5 whys and articulate everything. Okay, this looks very enterprise and very good process, but it's take a hell lot of amount of time. that you go to bug, then you document everything. That's take a huge amount of time, and then again you add the word called blameless, because you are not blaming anyone, as we are following the culture of the quality. That looks good, but the goal is I wanted to automate the certain processes. That okay, this everything is good, but let's not spend too much time on it, because we know that this is the issue, and issue is of our own code, right? It is not the code we are inherited from the aliens. So that we need to understand, and we need to resolve it.
So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. All right. So we've talked about BetterBugs, cool tool. Worst example you've seen of using it, and best example you've seen of using it.
Yeah. So I know that there's always a lot of use cases, because so one of my friend, he's a marketing consultant. So I just said, I'm building this tool. Now he said, okay, this is pretty much good tool. I don't need your logs and everything, but it is recording my screen and it's free. So instead of Loom, I'm going to use the BetterBugs. Oh my gosh, you created a new use case for me.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So this is something come up. The base case, what I have seen is, my tool is used by one of the SaaS company, and so generally, I early promote as it's engineering productivity tool, but he is using more on the support tickets, because so they train their users to report the issues using the BetterBugs. Because when the support peoples are reporting the issues to the developers, so QAs are still engineers, so they can document in right way. Support people are more about customer centric. So customer says that, hey, this is not working. The same language the support tells to the developer, hey, this is not working, do something. Now developer don't have any context, why it is not working, what could be the steps, on what screen, what is the workflow. So my friend is saying that, instead of our quality engineering team are using very well, but this has helped me anything into the support, because support will be raise the ticket using the BetterBugs. It is directly goes to the developer, and then there is no back and forth between the supports and the developer team. Otherwise, they put the support people comes, then they go to the QA. QA will create the ticket and it is assigned to the developer. Now they remove that back and forth. So that's the base case what they found, and that inspired me to build up the web SDK for the real user. They can easily report the issues from the website itself without installing the extension. Yeah,
it's really interesting.
Cool.
Yeah.
So in terms of the use of the tool, so if you've got an automation, a predominantly automated run, would you'd execute your tests, and then you'd have the tool running in the background? How would it work around kind of a largely automated test suite?
Mm-hmm.
The reason where I'm coming from with that is, does it create a large analysis burden off the back at the end?
So let's say when you record the script, it has its own data with it. The logs will be always stored on the server. So that's how it's generally running. Right now we are in plan to generate automatic, either a playwright or a Selenium script. So there's always a philosophy for me, if you record the bug, that has to convert it into the test cases. So next time in regression cycle, you cannot miss it to execute, right? So and that test cases, if we can automate it, that's the great scenario. So right now we are that's our next sprint of plan, that they will release the playwright and the Selenium snippet of the code whenever you record any bugs. So it will be automatically gives you that code, and you can put that piece of code in your framework. So
right.
That's how it will be run. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So I guess we at a risk of going down a kind of a tester kind of rabbit hole there. In terms of back to the quality conversation, if you were to give advice to teams that want to uplift their quality kind of agendas, conversations, philosophies, whatever, how might they use BetterBugs better, or how might they use just kind of your more general testing consultancy side of things? How would they look to kind of increase their focus on quality?
Mm-hmm. So BetterBugs, as I say, it's more about finding the pains from your system, right? So the best way to use the BetterBugs is you can start using for your UI reviews. So let's say if you have your website ready and then there is a Figma. Now you need to match that. Does it the pixel by pixel things are happening or not? Then UI review, you can certainly utilize it to logging out the integration issues. So you can just record the issues, everything with you, and just send to the developers to fix the stuffs. I always encourage that use the backend monitoring tool that we have integrated with it, because that gives a more insight that what is the real journey of the front end and the back end, both of the side. So you get those text trace, and I'm more fan of kind of monitoring and the observability stuff, because that's where you find out the real the problems or fixing the errors. So if we combinedly utilize the BetterBugs with the whole bug logging and reporting process to the fixing of the or resolutions of the issues, that's the best use case we can develop, for the testers.
Cool. James, thoughts?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, I guess. I don't know really. If I was thinking about advice, where are we going to go? What are we doing? I mean, for me, I think the core bit that Nishil spoke a lot about there, it's really not about tooling. It's all about process, right?
Yeah.
Like the tooling is actually, obviously the tooling helps and it shapes everything. It gives you the ability to do certain things, right? And obviously in the context of this conversation, without having BetterBugs, like you wouldn't be able to go through and record the activity, embed it in your framework and everything, right? But the bigger piece of value here is actually being able to reshape your process. So instead of having lots and lots of steps in between where you're going through and saying, okay, we've got to go backwards and forwards and have this new communication channel. We've got to deviate our time into these meetings, blah, blah, blah. We're almost going through this like process optimization piece, right? Where we're looking at the business process. We're wrapping the tool around it and we're saying, okay, let's strip out these pieces and let's go through. And I think that's so empowering. Like, I think organizations, a lot of the time when I talk to organizations, they feel the pain. So, one of the biggest things I hear is testing is a bottleneck. We can't hire good enough talent. I could keep reeling on this forever. There's so many problems, right? We're finding too many defects in production. And then you start to ask them questions about that and they don't have the answers because they don't understand the process in terms of how their software is being delivered, who is accountable in what roles, what the communication is between everything and where the information flows through. So I think if I was looking at it from a starting point, I would try to get a grip over what are the pains I'm seeing in the organization at the moment. I would then start to map out the processes around them. And then I would start to think about how can I improve these processes and what is the right technology for me to bring in to help me get them right. And there's going to be lots of stuff around that. There's going to be KPIs. There's going to be things that we can track to see we're improving those processes. But I think the biggest danger is just people don't understand. And it's not, I'm not discrediting anyone. It's just, it's just the hard reality, isn't it? I guess.
Why do you think that is? I totally agree. But it's obvious, but people don't do it.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, some of it is just lack of experience, I guess, lack of been there, done it before. And I've seen it in... go ahead.
Do you think there's an element of that? And I've got in my notes as well around, there's a large proliferation of tools, too many tools, especially when we're talking about automation, right? And do you think there's an element of, because we work in IT, there's got to be a technical solution and only a technical solution, rather than actually, this is not a technical solution. This is a people and a process thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that first, and then Nishil, you can jump in. I've found myself in this loop a million times, especially as I've started to move out of development to a certain extent and get involved in marketing, get involved in finance. And very early on, my solution to everything was, well, we need to go and find a tool to do that, right? Like we need to go and program a solution or we need to do this. And actually the reality is no, we don't. We need to take a step back, look at the process, build it. And I think you're absolutely right, Rich. I think that is what happens. Once you've been down this technical route, you see everything as, I can solve that problem. I can solve it with, this particular tool, this particular code, which is great because we are problem solvers. Like, we have a very logical mind to solve that problem, but it's everything else. It's the process and the people. It's not the tooling, right? Nishil, what are your thoughts? I'd be eager to hear.
Absolutely, I'm bang on the same thought process, because whenever we in my company we get any projects, the first thing what we have to do is the gap analysis, because see, people are come up and say, hey Nishil, we wanted to do the taste automation, and we say, okay, do you really require it? That's the first question. If yes, then why you require it, right? And then say blah 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 stuff, and then we come to know that okay, but your UI is not kind of developed yet. Do you need to do UI automation first or API automation first? That's again a questions, right? So and then they are also asking for which tool you are using, and then we come to know for certain customers that tooling cost is more than their developers cost, because for every small problems they embrace the tool, and to use the tool again they hire the people. There is no meaning, right? So that's very important, that first we need to identify in the whole SDLC life cycle what are the gaps you have the problems, again that on the philosophy of the functional quality, structural quality, and the process quality. If you find okay, the structural quality is my problem, the fixed your problem at that particular piece of the code, either it is the process or the people, just get those involved and solve the problem. So yeah, I think tooling is always available, but you have the knife, but what to do with the knife? Like, you wanted to murder someone, or you need to chop the vegetables, right?
Okay, this has taken a bad turn.
Yeah.
Your comment obviously made my mind sway. We've got this obsession with trying to replace ourselves with technology, right? And so this is where will automation replace testers? Well, no. Will AI replace testers? Well, no. The thing is, will BetterBugs replace testers? Is that you hope so? I guess. but the reality is, right, that it's there to enhance what we do, right? It's like an exoskeleton to make it better. But yet the industry seems obsessed with being replaced by it, and it never will, right? It never could.
It never could, yeah.
I mean, there's an element here of that's what excites funding, right? Like, if you go beyond, the industry, VC funding, where is all the money going right now? It's going into big AI companies who are trying to develop, general AI, right? And it's all about how can we replace people? How can we do that? But you're right, Rich, the biggest value here is how can we augment people, help them move faster, help them do more, help them be more productive. And I genuinely think that's the biggest gap. But it's driven by the industry. It's driven by the market. That's the issue, fundamentally, I think.
On the AI question, we have to get it in there for James. Do you get asked a lot of questions around, what does BetterBugs do around AI? I guess there are certain use cases around using the information that BetterBugs collects, to feed AI to get some pretty awesome insights, right? Is that a direction of travel?
It's absolutely the direction of the travel, but as we discussed, AI. So see, we always say it's AI assisted. That means it is the assistant to us, decision making on us, right?
Absolutely.
So the human is making the decision, and AI is doing the assistant. And the reason is that AI has a capability to process the huge information in short amount of time. That's where we can increase our productivity. So in my perspective, we can leverage the AI in that way that it will help us to make our decision making more sharpened, whatever the conclusion we wanted to make. We use that piece of the informations, we do our own intellect on it, and then we make the conclusion.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Cool. All right. Conscious of the time, then. We'll wrap it up here. Thank you very much, James, firstly, for co-hosting with me. Thanks so much, Nishil, for coming on to the pod, sharing your thoughts. If you last question or a last statement from yourself in terms of any advice or any kind of context that you want to put out there in terms of people engaging you? Why should they engage yourself or look further into BetterBugs? Give a kind of a 30-second elevator pitch here for BetterBugs.
So BetterBugs is a bug reporting and the feedback collection tool that is going to be your QA productivity is super high, and you will be a buddy of the developer. So developer gets every information, whatever they want for the debugging. So stay tuned together. Yeah, that's what the 30-second of speech from my side. And one piece of the advice for every testers is, I always say that you has to be you must have one characteristic in you as a tester that has to be a curiosity, because if you are not curious,
Yeah.
you cannot find out the more and more use case. So it's all about
Yep.
having the curiosity on the Curiosity podcast.
Absolutely.
Love it.
like your work. But yeah, thank you again so much for joining us. Thank you for everybody else for listening. Go and check out BetterBugs. Go and find Nishil on LinkedIn. He's there. Interesting posts. Go and find him.
Thank you very much.
With that, let's wrap up. Thanks very much, everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Why Didn't You Test That podcast. To continue the conversation, head over to curiositysoftware.ie. Subscribe for more episodes.